The stranger's grip closed on Emily Walker's wrist, meaning to yank her carpetbag into the mud. She swung first. The heel of her palm cracked against his jaw and sent him back 3 steps. Her bag thudded into the snow between them. Blood ran warm from her split lip. The Silver Creek platform went dead quiet. "Touch that bag again," she said low and even, "and I'll break something you can't walk off." If you're watching from anywhere in America tonight, drop your town in the comments, hit subscribe, and ride with me all the way through this Christmas Eve story. The stranger spat red into the snow. "Uppity piece of work for a woman who ain't got a dollar to her name." "I've got enough," Emily said. She bent slow eyes on him the whole time and picked up the carpet bag by its worn leather handle. "Enough to know a thief when one lays hands on me." A woman in a fur-trimmed cloak made a small pinched sound of disapproval. A freight hand chuckled behind his hand. Nobody moved to help her. Nobody had moved when the stranger first reached for her either. "Name's Hollis," the stranger said, working his jaw. "And you'll be hearing it again, Mrs. Crow." "My name is not Crow." "Not yet, maybe." He touched his jaw, tested it, and his eyes went cold. "But we all know what brought you on that train." He shoved past 2 men and was gone into the snow, coming off the high country. Emily stood her ground until the last of the travelers drifted off the platform. Then she finally let herself breathe. Her hand was shaking. She pressed it flat against her skirt so no one would see. 17 cents in her coat pocket. A carpet bag holding every worldly thing she owned. A telegram she'd read so many times the creases had worn clean through the paper. The telegram said Jeremiah Crow would meet her at the depot. The telegram said she would be married by nightfall. The telegram was dated the 1st of December. This was the 24th. There was no one on the platform. Emily walked. The boardwalk of Silver Creek ran maybe 400 feet from the depot to the far end of town, and every step of it was half-frozen mud and stamped down snow. Lanterns burning already, though it was barely past 3. Somewhere down the street, a man hollered about pine boughs for sale. Somewhere else, a child was crying. Emily kept walking. She stopped at the livery. A broad-shouldered man was forking hay into a stall, and he looked up when her shadow fell across him. "Help you, ma'am. I'm looking for Jeremiah Crow." The man's pitchfork paused mid-swing. He set it slow against the stall post and took off his hat. "Ma'am," he said. "You ain't heard." "Heard what?" "Jeremiah passed, 10 days back." Emily didn't drop the bag, didn't sit down, didn't make a sound. She'd done her crying 2 years ago in a Chicago boarding house over a different man and a different grave. "How?" "Pneumonia, they're saying." The liveryman looked past her out at the street, and his mouth tightened. "Though I got my own notions about that." "What notions?" He looked at her, then really looked. Took in the split lip, the carpet bag, the cut of her coat that had been fine 3 winters ago and was tolerable now. "Miss, who are you to Jeremiah Crow?" "I was meant to be his wife." The liveryman swore low and kind. He settled his hat back on his head. "Then you'd best get off this street, and you'd best do it quick. Elias Crow's been watching the depot every afternoon for 10 days. For you. You do not want that man finding you on a boardwalk with a carpet bag and no place to stand." "Who's Elias Crow?" "Jeremiah's cousin, and near about every bad thing this town's got." "Where's the telegraph office?" "Miss, where's the telegraph office?" He pointed. The telegraph office was a narrow room at the back of the mercantile, 1 brass key, 1 clerk, and a Franklin stove putting out more smoke than heat. The clerk was maybe 22, thin as a rail with a Christmas ribbon pinned crooked to his vest. He stood up fast when Emily walked in. "Afternoon, ma'am. What can I—" "My name is Emily Walker. 10 days back a telegram came for me out of this office routed through Denver, from a Margaret Crow. I need to know why it arrived in Chicago 2 days after I'd already boarded the train west." The clerk's mouth opened, closed. "Son," Emily said, "I have had a long journey. I do not have the patience for lies. When did that telegram leave this key?" "Ma'am, I only came on in November. I don't—" When? He swallowed. His eyes flicked toward the door behind him. Emily noted the flick, filed it. It was held. Held. Postmaster's orders. Who's postmaster? Mr. Crow, ma'am. Which Mr. Crow? Elias, ma'am. Emily set her carpet bag on the counter. She set it very gently, the way a woman sets down a thing she'd otherwise like to throw. Does a postmaster have the authority to hold a private telegram for 10 days? No, ma'am. The clerk's voice had gone to a whisper. He does not. Thank you, Emily said. That is all I wanted to know. She picked up the bag and walked out. 3 doors down, she tried the dry goods store. Mornin', ma'am. Christmas wreaths are 2 bits and we got... I'm lookin' for work. The woman behind the counter, a broad-faced woman with a kind mouth, looked her up and down. What kind of work, dear? Ledger work. Books, inventory, correspondence. I can set a month's accounts in an afternoon and find a penny missing in a year's worth of them. The kind mouth flattened. Dear, we don't. I worked 6 years at Pemberton and Hale, Chicago. I kept the books for a freight concern with 200 drivers and 40 wagons. I'm sure you did, ma'am. But we don't hire outsiders. I'll work a day for a meal. To prove it. Ma'am, not this week. Emily held her eye a beat. Not this week. The woman looked down at her hands. I'm sorry. Emily walked. The seamstress's shop next door wouldn't open the latch past an inch. The Grand Hotel wouldn't let her pass the lobby. The stage line office had a sign that read, No help wanted, and a man behind the desk who would not lift his eyes off his paper even when she spoke to him twice. She stood on the boardwalk. Snow had started up again, fine and mean, the kind that settles into a woman's collar and doesn't melt because the woman isn't warm enough to melt it. The lamps were coming on down the length of Silver Creek, pine boughs tied to every post. Christmas Eve. Emily counted her 17 cents. Then she tucked the coins back and walked to the iron pot. The iron pot smelled like beef and bread and strong black coffee. Emily stood in the door a moment, letting her eyes run the room. 12 tables, 6 occupied. Proprietor at the counter sleeves rolled a towel over one shoulder, a man in middle age who had seen enough of life to be slow to surprise. One lone man at the corner table back to the wall plate of stew and a cup of coffee. Dark coat. Black hat on the peg above him. He did not look up when she came in, but she had the clear, sharp sense that he had clocked her the second the bell rang over the door. She walked to the counter. Ma'am, the proprietor said, you the owner? I am. Name's Sawyer. Mr. Sawyer, I'd like to make you a proposition. Sawyer's eyebrows went up about a quarter inch. All right. How long since your books have been looked at by anyone who knows what they're doing? The quarter inch went to a full inch. Beg pardon? Your books, Mr. Sawyer, your ledgers, your supply accounts. When did somebody last check them properly? Sawyer looked at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, quiet, not unkind. Ma'am, I don't know who you are, but that is about the strangest thing anyone's ever asked me standing at this counter. When? Not in 5 years, I reckon. Then let me at them. 2 hours. If I find you less than $1 saved, you owe me nothing. If I find you more than that, you feed me a supper and give me a cup of coffee. That is the whole of the proposition. Sawyer's mouth worked. He was the kind of man Emily could tell who didn't much like an idea he hadn't thought of first. Ma'am, with all respect, a woman don't... I do. Come into a man's establishment and... 2 hours, Mr. Sawyer. A supper and a cup of coffee against nothing. I am the one taking the risk here. You are the one sitting on 5 years of books you haven't looked at. Ma'am? Mr. Sawyer. Somebody cleared his throat. From the corner table, the man in the dark coat stood up. He didn't hurry. He picked up his coffee, walked the length of the room, and set the cup down on the counter next to Emily's bag. He was taller than she'd guessed. A thin white scar ran from his left temple down under his jaw and disappeared into his collar. His eyes were the color of wet slate. Sawyer, he said. Mr. Stone. Let the lady look at your books. Sawyer opened his mouth. I'll stand her supper either way. Stone said, "and I'll take her on at the Lazy S for whatever she finds you plus double. I've got 3 years of ledger I haven't touched since my foreman died. She finds me a nickel in 'em. I'll pay her $1 for it." Sawyer's face did a small, fast thing. "Mr. Stone, I don't believe You don't have to believe anything. You just have to let the lady look." There was no threat in it. There was no threat anywhere on the man. But Sawyer glanced down and up and then wiped his hands on his towel and said, "Back room, ma'am. Ledgers are in the green book and the black one." "Thank you," Emily said. She did not look at Stone. She walked to the back room, set her carpet bag down, and opened the green book. It took her 40 minutes. She came out with 2 pages torn from her own small notebook, covered in her neat, spidery hand. She set them on the counter in front of Sawyer, who had been watching the back room door, like a man who had just bet on a horse he didn't know. "Mr. Sawyer," she said, "in the last 11 months, your flour supplier has double billed you on 4 separate invoices, a total of $9.60. Sawyer's mouth opened. "Your butcher is shorting you 4 pounds a week on the beef side. I cross-checked his weight slips against your stove records. That's $22 and change over a year. Ma'am, your wife, I'd guess, handles the coffee order. She's paying 15% over the going rate. That one, I don't mind telling you, is not her fault. That is the Denver wholesaler taking advantage of a lady. Switch to the outfit in Cheyenne, and you'll save $3 a month." The room had gone quiet. Sawyer looked down at the 2 pages. He picked them up. He read them. He read them again. "I'll be damned," he said softly. "Supper, Mr. Sawyer, and a cup of coffee." "Ma'am, you'll have supper in this establishment every night this week if you—" "Just tonight, thank you." Sawyer nodded slow and turned for the kitchen. Emily turned. Stone was still standing there. He had not moved from the counter. His coffee cup was empty. "Ma'am," he said, "my offer stands. 3 years of ledgers. Any nickel you find, I pay $1 on it. And the same terms for a month straight if you want the work." "Why?" "Because I meant it. You don't know me, Mr. Stone. I know what I just watched." Emily looked at him a long moment. There was no warmth in his face. There was no pity. There was the steady, patient look of a man who had decided a thing and was not going to argue about it. "I'll think on it," she said. "Take your time. Mr. Stone." "Ma'am." "Who is Elias Crow?" Stone went very still. Slate eyes on her. "Where'd you hear that name?" "Liveryman said it. Telegraph boy said it. Hollis said it on the platform. I'd like to hear it from someone who'll tell me the truth." Stone considered her. Then he said, "Elias Crow owns the bank, the post office, 2 judges, and most of the land deeds in this valley. He is Jeremiah Crow's cousin. He is the reason Jeremiah Crow is dead, whether or not anyone in this town has the stomach to say so out loud. And he has been standing at the depot every afternoon for 10 days, waiting for a woman in a gray coat with a carpet bag." Emily felt the cold in her spine. It had nothing to do with the weather. "Why?" "Because Jeremiah changed his will in October, and the new one names his wife, not his cousin. Elias knows you're not married yet. He wanted to get to you before anyone else in town could." "He sent a man," Emily said. Stone's eyes sharpened. "On the platform. Tried to take my bag." "What did you do?" "Cracked his jaw and told him I'd break something else if he touched it again." Something moved in Stone's face. Not quite a smile. Something colder and steadier than a smile. "Ma'am," he said, "I'll accept that ledger work on revised terms. You'll do the books at the Lazy S. You'll sleep at Mrs. Dorset's boarding house, which is owned outright by her and not by Elias Crow, and is the only roof in this town he cannot walk under uninvited. You'll take meals on my account at the Iron Pot until such time as we have this business settled. And the first hour you do not care to keep working for me, you say the word and you walk. Mr. Stone, that is the terms. Take 'em or leave 'em. I don't accept charity. This ain't charity, ma'am. This is me hiring the most dangerous person who has set foot in Silver Creek in 10 years and doing it before Elias Crow figures out what you are." Emily looked at him, at the scar, at the slate eyes. at the hands that had not moved once the whole time resting on the counter steady. "What am I, Mr. Stone?" "You are a woman who can read a ledger," he said quietly, "in a town built on false ones." Behind them, the bell over the door jangled. Emily did not turn. She did not have to. She saw it in Sawyer's face coming out of the kitchen with her plate. She saw it in the way the room went still. She saw it in the way Caleb Stone shifted just an inch so his right hand was free. A man's voice smooth and warm as good whiskey. "Well now, Mrs. Crow, we have been waiting on you." Emily turned. Elias Crow was a handsome man. She noted that the way she noted columns of figures, tall, broad-shouldered, a black coat cut by a Denver tailor, a gold watch chain, a smile that had charmed judges and bankers, and she did not doubt widowed mothers into signing away their land. "I am not Mrs. Crow," Emily said. "Well," the smile widened. "Not yet, perhaps, but Jeremiah's intentions are not a marriage, Mr. Crow, and I will thank you not to call me by a name I do not own." Elias laughed light for the benefit of the room. "Miss Walker, then, forgive me. I am only trying to welcome family." "We are not family." "Now, Miss Walker." He took a step closer. Stone beside her did not move, but the temperature of the air changed. "I understand you've had a long journey, a shock. I would like to offer my carriage and my home, and a chance to sit down over a proper supper and discuss." "I have supper, Mr. Crow. Mrs. Dorset's is no place for a lady in your—" "I have lodging." Elias's smile thinned a fraction. "Miss Walker, there are matters of the estate that must be—" "Then you may write to me, care of Mr. Stone at the Lazy S Ranch. I will receive correspondence there. I will not receive a carriage, a supper, or a visit. Good evening, Mr. Crow." The room did not breathe. Elias Crow looked at her, then at Caleb Stone, then slow back at her. "Miss Walker," he said, and the warmth was gone out of his voice now, clean as a knife drawn out of a sheath. "You are a long way from Chicago, and this is a small town. I would think very carefully about whose roof you sleep under tonight." "Mr. Crow," Emily said, "I have been thinking very carefully for some time." She picked up her plate from Sawyer's hand. She walked past Elias Crow without looking at him, sat down at the corner table Stone had just left, and began without hurry to eat. Behind her she heard the bell over the door. She heard Elias Crow's boots go back out into the snow. She heard the room slow begin to breathe again. Caleb Stone sat down across from her. He did not speak. She ate the stew. It was good stew. She ate the bread. She drank the coffee, which was strong and hot, and had honey in it instead of sugar, which she had not tasted in 3 years. When she was done, she set the cup down and looked at him. "Mr. Stone?" "Ma'am?" "The terms." "Yes, ma'am." "I accept." Caleb Stone slid a key across the table. Brass, small, worn smooth at the tooth. "Mrs. Dorset's front door," he said. "She don't usually hand 'em out. She made an exception." "Why?" "Because I asked." "That ain't a reason." "It is in this town." Emily closed her hand around the key. It was warm from his pocket. "Mr. Stone, I want to be clear on a thing." "Go on." "I am not a woman looking for a husband. I came out here to marry Jeremiah Crow because he offered me a roof and a name, and I needed both. He is dead. I am still alive. That changes what I need." "What do you need?" "Work, safety, a door that locks, and the chance to find out who killed the man I was meant to stand beside." Caleb's slate eyes held hers. "You think he was killed?" "I think a man who changed his will in October and died in December in a town his cousin owns did not die by accident. And I think you think so too." "I do." "Then we have an understanding." "Reckon we do." He stood. He dropped a silver dollar on the table for her supper and a coin for Sawyer besides. "Mrs. Dorset's is the third house past the church. Green shutters. She'll be waiting on you. I'll send a boy for you at sunup to fetch you to the Lazy S." "Mr. Stone." He paused. "Why are you doing this?" Caleb Stone settled his hat. "Because 3 years ago, I was a Pinkerton man, working a rail fraud case out of Omaha. Elias Crow was the name on the top of my warrant. Before I could serve it, the case got closed over my head. Closed by a judge who is now one of his. I came out here to ranch and forget it. I have not forgotten it. Emily's breath went still. You never told anyone that. I'm telling you. Why? Because you cracked a man's jaw on a train platform with 17 cents in your pocket, Caleb said. And I would rather have you on my side of a ledger than his. He walked out. The bell jangled. Emily sat alone at the corner table with an empty plate and a key in her hand that was still warm from a stranger's coat. She did not cry. She had not cried since Chicago. She was not going to start tonight. Mrs. Dorset opened the door before Emily's second knock. She was a small woman, maybe 60. Iron gray hair pinned hard against her head, a black mourning brooch at her throat that looked like it had not been unpinned in 20 years. Miss Walker. Ma'am. Caleb Stone sent word you'd be on my porch. He did not mention you'd have a busted lip. It's nothing. Child, it is not nothing. Come in before half this town pretends they didn't see you standing there. Emily stepped inside. Boots off on the rag rug, bag in the hall, kitchen's through there. I have coffee, I have a biscuit, and I have a great deal of Christmas Eve patience for a woman who has put Elias Crow back on his heels in the iron pot inside of an hour. News travels. Child, in Silver Creek news does not travel, news runs. Emily sat at the kitchen table. Mrs. Dorset put a plate of biscuits in front of her without asking, and a small pot of apple butter and a cup of coffee. And then she sat down across and folded her hands. My husband built this house in 61, Mrs. Dorset said. He died in 78. The deed has been in my name clean for 14 years. Elias Crow has offered to buy it 6 times. 6. The last time he offered twice what it's worth. I told him no, and I told him why. Why? Because the day I sell this house is the day he owns the last piece of this street he does not own already. Emily looked down at her coffee. Mrs. Dorset, I do not want to bring trouble to your door. Child. Mrs. Dorset smiled, and for the first time her mouth softened. Trouble has been at my door every Sunday for a decade. You are not bringing anything that is not already here. Now eat your biscuit. You have got the shakes. Emily ate the biscuit. She had not realized she had the shakes until the first bite went down warm, and she felt her hands unclench. Mrs. Dorset? Leona. Leona. What did Jeremiah Crow die of? Leona Dorset's eyes went flat. The doctor said pneumonia. And what do you say? I say the doctor is Elias Crow's wife's brother. I say Jeremiah was seen at Sunday service on the 29th of November walking and talking and laughing with Reverend Hale. I say he was buried on the 4th of December. That is 5 days. I have buried 2 husbands and 4 children in this valley, Miss Walker. Pneumonia does not take a grown man in 5 days. Not one who was laughing on Sunday. Did anyone ask for an inquest? Who would have asked? Margaret Crow, Jeremiah's sister. She wrote me a letter. Margaret. Leona's mouth tightened. Margaret Crow has not left her brother's ranch house since the day he died. Elias told the town she is prostrate with grief. I do not believe her grief is the thing that's keeping her indoors. Emily set down her coffee cup. Leona, would you take me to her? Tonight. Tomorrow. After I have seen Caleb Stone's ledgers. Leona looked at her a long moment. Child, what exactly did you do in Chicago? I kept the books for a freight company. Uh-huh. And before that, my father was a lawyer. I read every brief he ever wrote. I was the one who caught the error in the Hastings will that saved a widow her farm. I was 15. And your husband? Emily's jaw set. My husband is a matter for another evening, Leona. Leona did not push. Tomorrow morning, she said. Caleb's boy will be here at sunup. You will do his books. You will come back here for dinner. And in the afternoon, you and I will pay a call on Margaret Crow. And God help Elias Crow if he is standing in her parlor when we arrive. The Lazy S was 6 miles out of town. Emily wrote in the buckboard next to a tow-headed boy of about 14 named Sam, who said exactly 3 words the entire journey. "Mornin'. Ma'am, here." The ranch house was big and plain and built for weather. Caleb Stone met her at the porch. "Coffee's on. Ledgers are on the kitchen table." "Where do you want me?" "Wherever a person reads a ledger. I don't know. I have never sat down to one longer than it takes to curse at it." "Mr. Stone." "Caleb." "Mr. Stone, I will need every piece of paper you have on the last 3 years. Purchase receipts, tax assessments, every telegram from a cattle buyer, every bill of sale, every property deed. They are in the bottom drawer of the desk in the office. Nobody has opened that drawer since my foreman died." "When did your foreman die?" Caleb Stone paused. "March of last year." "How?" "Fell off a horse he'd been riding 6 years." Emily looked up from the ledger. "Caleb." "Ma'am." "How many people have died in this valley strange and sudden in the last 3 years?" Caleb Stone pulled out the chair across from her and sat down slow. "I have wondered," he said quietly, "if anyone was ever going to ask me that question out loud." "How many?" 7. That I know of. All of them owned land. All of them. All of them had disputes with the bank. All of them. And all of their heirs sold out to Elias Crow within 6 months. All of them. Emily closed the ledger, very carefully. "Caleb, this is not a ledger job. This is a federal case." "Ma'am, I want to be plain. If I open these books and I find what I think I'm going to find, I am not going to be able to put it back. Neither are you. We will be standing in the middle of a thing a lot of men have already died in. Ma'am, I did not bring you out here to put it back." Emily nodded once. She opened the ledger. She worked until noon without lifting her head. Caleb brought her coffee twice. Sam brought her a sandwich she did not notice eating. By 11:30 she had 3 pages of numbers, 6 pages of names, and a tight hard knot behind her breastbone that was not fear. It was recognition. At noon she set her pencil down. "Caleb." "Ma'am." "Your north pasture, the 160 acres up against the creek." "What about it?" "You do not own it." Caleb Stone went very still. "Beg pardon?" "According to the county recorder's stamp on the back of this bill of sale, you bought that parcel in 1887 from a man named Thomas Hale, 3 years ago. You paid $1,100 cash. You have the receipt." "I have the receipt. I have the deed." "You have a deed. It is not the deed that is on file at the county office. There is a second deed filed 2 weeks after yours in the name of the Silver Creek Land and Cattle Company, which is a shell, which is owned by Elias Crow." "That is not possible." "Caleb, it is on the paper in front of me. Your receipt is dated October 14th. The county stamp on your deed says October 22nd. The second deed in Elias Crow's shell company is dated October 25th, but the county stamp says October 20th. They backdated it. They backdated it. Why? Because the minute you try to sell that parcel, or mortgage it, or pass it to an heir, the second deed surfaces, and Elias Crow's company takes your land. And you cannot prove anything, because the county stamp is on his paper and not on yours." Caleb Stone put both hands flat on the table. "How many of my neighbors," he said, "do you reckon are sitting on a deed that ain't worth the paper?" "All of them, Caleb. Every single man in this valley who did not buy his land before Elias Crow's cousin got appointed county recorder." "When was his cousin appointed?" "October of '86. "Son of a—" He did not finish. He stood up. He walked to the window. He put his hand flat on the glass. "Caleb." "Ma'am?" "There is more." "Tell me." "Jeremiah Crow's will." "What about it?" "It names his wife. If he had no wife, it names his sister Margaret. If Margaret cannot take it, it names his nearest male cousin, which is Elias." "I know." "Caleb, Jeremiah's will is dated October of this year, 3 months ago. It is witnessed by Thomas Hale, the same Thomas Hale who sold you the north pasture. Caleb turned from the window. Thomas Hale is dead. When did he die? November 9th. Of? Pneumonia. Emily looked down at the ledger. Caleb. Thomas Hale was the witness on Jeremiah Crow's will. Thomas Hale was the seller on your deed. Thomas Hale was a man who knew exactly what papers had been filed in October and what papers had been filed in secret. And Thomas Hale died of pneumonia in a valley where men die of pneumonia when Elias Crow wants them to. 3 weeks before Jeremiah. 3 weeks before Jeremiah. Silence. Then Caleb Stone said very soft, "Ma'am, I am going to ask you a question, and I want a straight answer. Ask. Can you prove any of this in a court of law?" "Not the murders, not yet, but the land fraud, yes. If I have the county recorder's original book, and I have 30 minutes with it, and I have a witness who will swear to the date of filing, I can put Elias Crow's shell company and his recorder cousin in front of a federal judge. The murders will come after. Murders always come after. You start with the paper. And to get the recorder's book, somebody has to walk into the recorder's office and ask to see it. They will not show it. No, they will not." Caleb Stone looked at her a long moment. "Ma'am," he said, "Mrs. Dorset told me this morning you intend to visit Margaret Crow this afternoon." "I do." Margaret Crow's husband was the county recorder before Elias's cousin was. He died in 1885. Of? Pneumonia. Of course. But Margaret, ma'am. Margaret Crow was her husband's clerk for 11 years. Margaret Crow hand-copied every deed in this valley between 74 and 85. And Margaret Crow, unless I am a fool, still has the clerk's private duplicate book. Emily's breath caught. Caleb. Ma'am? If she has that book, and if the dates in that book do not match the dates in the office book, then we have him. Then we have him. Caleb Stone walked to the door. He took his hat off the peg. He set it on his head. "Ma'am, I am comin'. I was not going to suggest otherwise." They were 3 miles out of town on the road back, Emily driving, and Caleb riding beside her, when the rider came up fast from behind them. "Stone!" Caleb wheeled. "Stone, pull up." It was a boy, not more than 16, breathless, horse-lathered. Emily did not know him. "Son, slow down. Mrs. Dorset sent me. Mr. Stone, you need to come, sir. You need to come now." "What?" "Elias Crow and 2 men are on her porch. They say they have a warrant. They say they are there to take Miss Walker into custody for theft of Crow property out of Jeremiah's house." "She has not been in Jeremiah's house." "I know, sir. Mrs. Dorset knows. They don't care. They are on her porch. She is in the doorway with her husband's shotgun. She said to tell you she will hold them there until you come, but she said to come fast. Mr. Stone, she said to come very fast." Emily's hands tightened on the reins. "Caleb." "Ma'am, get in the saddle. Sam's horse is tied behind the buckboard. You ride like a woman who has been in a saddle before, I hope." "I have." "Then ride. I will meet you at Mrs. Dorset's front gate. Do not go up the steps without me." Caleb. "Ma'am, if we go to that porch and Elias Crow has a warrant and his judge has signed it, I will be in a Silver Creek jail cell before sundown. And I will not come out." Caleb Stone looked down at her from his horse. "Ma'am," he said, "you are not going into any jail cell. Not in this town, not in this valley, not while I am drawing breath." "That is a large promise, Mr. Stone." "It is not a promise, ma'am. It is a fact." He turned his horse and put his heels to it. Emily swung down from the buckboard, untied Sam's horse, threw her skirt over the saddle, the way her father had taught her before she was 10, and rode. Behind her, a long way behind her, the bell of the Silver Creek Church began to ring for Christmas evening service. Ahead of her, a green shuttered house on the 3rd lot past the church had 3 men on its porch and an old woman in its doorway with a shotgun she had not lifted in 14 years, and she was lifting it now, steady for a woman she had known less than a day. Emily came up on Mrs. Dorset's gate at a hard canter and swung down before the horse had stopped moving. "Miss Walker." Elias Crow's voice was smooth as Sunday butter. "You are precisely the woman we are looking for." He was on the 3rd step. two men behind him. One of them was Hollis, and Hollis had a bruise on his jaw the color of a ripe plum. In the doorway, Leona Dorset stood with both hands on the stock of a 12-gauge and her thumb resting on the hammer. "Elias," Leona said without taking her eyes off him, "I have told you 3 times to step off my porch." "Mrs. Dorset, ma'am, I am here on lawful business." "You are on my porch. My porch is not lawful business." "Miss Walker." Elias did not look at Leona. "I have a warrant here signed this morning by Judge Beckwith for the theft of personal property from the home of the late Jeremiah Crow, specifically a silver locket, a family Bible, and $300 in currency." "I have not been in Jeremiah Crow's home." "The warrant says otherwise." "The warrant is a lie." "Then you are welcome to say so before the judge." "Show me the warrant." Elias Crow paused for the briefest beat. He had not expected her to ask. He reached into his coat. "Slowly," Leona said. Elias's hand slowed by about a quarter. He produced a folded paper and held it out. Emily climbed the first 2 steps, took it, and stepped back down. She read it. She read it twice. She looked up. "Mr. Crow?" "Miss Walker." "This warrant is not signed." Elias's jaw did something small and tight. "It is signed at the bottom, Miss Walker. It is initialed at the bottom. J.B. That is not a signature. A warrant out of a territorial bench requires the full printed name of the judge, his signature, and the seal of the court. This paper has none of those things. It has an ink stamp. The stamp is for the county clerk's office and is not valid for a bench warrant." The silence on the porch went taut. Furthermore, Emily's voice did not rise. "The warrant lists the date of the alleged theft as December 23rd. I arrived in Silver Creek on December 24th. I have a train ticket in my bag, a telegram from the depot clerk, and 6 passengers on the Chicago line who will swear I was in a rail car on the 23rd. Miss Walker, and the warrant names a silver locket, a family Bible, and $300 in currency as stolen. Mr. Crow. Jeremiah Crow's personal effects were inventoried by the coroner on December 5th, and a copy of that inventory is in the county courthouse. I have not seen it, but I will wager you my life that locket and that Bible are listed on it. Which means they were in his house on the 5th after his death, and no one could have stolen them before the 23rd except a man with a key to that house." She held out the warrant. "Which one of your men, Mr. Crow, has a key to your dead cousin's house?" Elias Crow did not move. Behind him, Hollis made a small sound, like a man who had just realized the ground under his feet was thinner than he'd thought. "Miss Walker," Elias said, very quiet now. "You have a clever mouth." "I have read a great many bad papers in my life, Mr. Crow. This one is not even in the top 50. Clever mouths have a way of getting women into trouble in small towns. And bad warrants have a way of getting men into federal court, Mr. Crow. Which would you like to talk about first?" A horse came up the street at a hard gallop. Caleb Stone swung down at the gate and walked through it without breaking stride. "Elias," he said. "Stone. Step off the porch. I have business with Miss Walker." "You had business. The lady just closed it. Step off the porch." Hollis's hand moved a quarter inch toward his hip. Caleb Stone did not look at Hollis. He did not have to. "Son," Caleb said, still to Elias, "if your man's hand goes another inch, I will put a bullet through his wrist, and I will put it there before he has touched leather. You know I can. Tell him." "Hollis," Elias said. Hollis's hand went flat at his side. "Step off the porch, Elias." "Stone." Elias's smile had gone thin and cold. "You are shelterin' a thief. I am standing beside a bookkeeper. That is a different thing. And the warrant in her hand is no warrant at all, and you know it, and I know it, and Judge Beckwith is going to know it the next time he sits sober at that bench and somebody asks him what he put his initials on. Stone. Off the porch, Elias." Elias Crow looked at Emily. He looked at Caleb. He looked at Leona in the doorway with the 12-gauge. He stepped down off the porch. His 2 men followed him. Hollis last. Hollis did not take his eyes off Emily the whole way. "Miss Walker," Elias said from the street, I look forward to our next conversation. Mr. Crow, I do not. He tipped his hat and walked. Leona Dorset did not lower the shotgun until his boots were past the fence. Then her arms began to shake, and she set the barrel against the doorframe, and she sat down on the threshold very hard. Leona! Emily was up the steps in 3 strides. I am fine, child. You are not fine. I am 62 years old, and I have just pointed my late husband's gun at a man I have known for 30 years. I am not fine, but I am here. Help me up. Emily helped her up. Caleb Stone was already coming up the steps behind her. Inside, he said. All of us. Now. They went inside. Caleb locked the door. He walked to the window. He drew the curtain an inch and looked out. He has posted a man across the street. Of course he has, Leona said. She had gone to the stove and was putting the kettle on with hands that were still shaking. He means to watch every person who walks up my steps until he finds a reason to come back with a real warrant. Then we have until that warrant exists, Caleb said. We have until sundown, Emily said. They looked at her. Beckwith is a drinker, she said. Is he not? He is. Then Beckwith will be drunk by 7. A drunk man will sign anything by 9. By 10 o'clock tonight, Elias Crow will have a warrant that does not have the errors on it that this one does. We have until 10 o'clock, probably less. Less, Caleb said. He will not wait on the judge. He will come back with a rope and call it a citizens' committee. Then less. Leona set 3 cups on the table. Then we had better go see Margaret Crow now. Leona, you are not going anywhere but to bed. Child. Leona's voice had gone flat. 30 years ago, my husband built a house that Elias Crow's father tried to burn down. My husband stood on this porch with this shotgun and told that man that if he came back, he would come back in a pine box. He did not come back. I have been waiting 30 years for the sun. I am not staying in bed. Caleb Stone looked at her. Leona? Caleb. Get your coat. They did not take the street. They went out Leona's kitchen door through the rear garden over a low fence that Leona climbed with more ease than any of them expected, and down an alley that came out 3 doors past the church. From there they walked the long way around behind the livery, through the feed yard, and onto the road that ran out to the Crow ranch house. It was 1.5 miles in the cold. Emily did not feel it. The Crow house sat at the end of a long cedar lane, a broad squat building with a wraparound porch, and not a single lamp burning in any of its windows. Door will be locked, Caleb said. Door will not be locked, Leona said, because Margaret Crow has not locked a door in this valley in 40 years. She says a locked door is a sign you do not trust your neighbors. I have been telling her for decades that she does not have any neighbors and she does not listen. She walked up the porch and tried the handle. The door opened. Margaret, Leona called softly. Margaret, it is Leona. I have Caleb Stone and a woman with me, and we mean you no harm. Do not shoot. A long silence. Then a voice from the dark, thin, and dry as paper. Leona, if I had a gun in this house, Elias would have taken it already. A lamp was struck in a back room. Margaret Crow came down the hall carrying it. She was perhaps 40. She was not prostrate with grief. She was dressed in black from throat to ankle. Her hair was combed. Her mouth was set. She looked like a woman who had been waiting. She looked at Emily. You are the woman my brother was to marry. I am. I am sorry. I am sorry also for your brother. Margaret Crow's eyes filled. She did not let the tears fall. She stepped back from the doorway. Come in, all of you, quickly. They went in. She shut the door and threw a bolt Emily had not heard turn when they walked in. I lied to Leona about the locks, Margaret said. I have kept this door bolted for 3 weeks. Elias has a key. I had to have the bolt put on by a man from Cheyenne who does not know my cousin's name. Margaret. Leona took her hands. Child, why did you not send for me? Because anyone I sent for Elias would have known. The only people I can trust in this valley are the people who walk up my porch without being called. You are the fourth Leona. There are not going to be a fifth. The other three. My brother, Thomas Hale, and Dr. Pritchard, who signed the death certificate under duress and was found in his own barn the next morning with a rope around his neck. Elias called it a suicide. I called it a Tuesday. The room did not breathe. Margaret, Caleb Stone said, we have come for the clerk's book. Margaret Crow's eyes closed. I knew somebody was going to come for it, she said. I did not know who. I have been praying it would be someone I did not have to bury. We need it tonight. You cannot take it tonight. If it leaves this house tonight, Elias will know by morning, and he will know I have been keeping it, and I will be the next death certificate. I will give it to you. But you must give me a story first, a reason you came, something I can say to his men when they come asking. We came to pay respects, Emily said. He will not believe it. He will not have to. Because Miss Walker came to pay respects, and Miss Walker is the intended wife of the deceased, and Miss Walker has every right to sit an hour in this parlor and look at her husband-to-be's family Bible. Caleb looked at her. Emily. Margaret. Do you have Jeremiah's family Bible? I do. Does it have the names of the children of this house going back 3 generations, written in the hand of your mother? It does. Then when Elias's men ask why we came, you will tell them I asked to see the names of the family I almost married into. You will tell them you refused at first. You will tell them Leona and Caleb persuaded you. You will tell them I read the names and wept. You will tell them we stayed 40 minutes and left through the front door. You will tell them the truth of that visit because that visit will have happened. And while it is happening, Caleb will go into your husband's old office, he will take the clerk's book, he will wrap it in oilcloth, he will tie it to the underside of the buckboard with twine, and none of us will speak of it again until we are home. Margaret Crow looked at her a long moment. You are not what I expected, she said. Ma'am, Emily said, very few people have ever gotten what they expected of me. My brother expected a plain, quiet woman who would keep his books and bear his children and not ask questions. Then your brother expected wrong. No. Margaret's mouth trembled. My brother expected what the letters said, and the letters did not say plain quiet. The letters said a woman who had read every brief her father ever wrote and caught an error in a will at 15. My brother knew exactly what he was marrying. He wanted a woman who could stand in this valley after he was gone and do the thing he could not get done in time. What thing? Bring Elias down. Emily's breath left her very slowly. Jeremiah knew. Jeremiah knew. Jeremiah had been gathering paper for 2 years. Jeremiah changed his will in October to put it in the hands of a wife, because a wife was the one person Elias could not inherit around. Jeremiah sent for you because my father's old friend in Chicago had written him 3 years back about a young bookkeeper named Emily Walker, who had caught a thief 2 judges had missed. Jeremiah sent for you, Miss Walker, because he needed a witness. A wife would be a witness his cousin could not touch. And then Elias killed him. 4 days before you were meant to arrive. Margaret Crow opened a drawer in the hall table. She took out a flat leather folder. She handed it to Emily. These are the letters my brother wrote you that Elias never let the post office send. There are 14 of them. Read them when you are safe. They tell you everything my brother meant to tell you over supper on your wedding night. Emily took the folder. Her hands had gone still. Margaret. Miss Walker. Your husband's clerk's book. 2nd floor. The room at the end of the hall. Under the floorboard beneath the washstand. The 3rd board in from the north wall. It is wrapped in oilcloth already. I wrapped it the night my brother died. Caleb Stone was already moving. Margaret, Leona said, after tonight, you come home with us. Leona. I am not asking. Leona, if I leave this house tonight, Elias will burn it before dawn with every paper in it, and 3 generations of my family will be gone from the earth. I will come with you when the papers are safe. Not before. Margaret. A hard knock on the front door. 3 knocks. Fast. then a fourth slower. Margaret Crow's face went gray. "That," she said very quietly, "is Elias's knock." Upstairs, the boards creaked once as Caleb Stone went still. Outside, a voice called through the wood. "Margaret, I saw a buckboard on the Cedar Lane. Open the door, cousin. I am comin' in whether you do or you do not." Emily slid the leather folder inside her coat. Leona picked up a fire iron from the hearth. Margaret Crow squared her shoulders, walked to the door and put her hand on the bolt. She looked back at Emily. "Miss Walker," she said, "my brother told me in his last letter that if he did not live to meet you, I was to tell you one thing." "What?" "He said to tell you he was sorry. And he said to tell you that the woman who cracks Elias Crow's jaw is the woman he always hoped he was writin' to." She drew the bolt. Elias Crow walked into the parlor like a man walking into a room he already owned. "Cousin. Elias. You have company." "I do." He looked at Leona by the hearth with the fire iron in her hand. He looked at Emily standing by the window. He did not look up the stairs, not yet. "Mrs. Dorset, Miss Walker, in my dead cousin's house, on the evening of Christmas Eve." "We are payin' respects," Emily said. "Are you?" "Margaret was showing me the family Bible. I wanted to see the names of the people I was meant to stand beside. I will not have the chance to see them in a church." Elias Crow tilted his head a quarter inch. He was a man who read faces for a living, and he was reading hers now. "A touchin' thought, Miss Walker. Where is the Bible?" Emily did not blink. "On the side table, behind you." It was. Margaret had laid it out before they arrived. Open to the page of births and deaths in a woman's careful, slanted hand, the last entry being Jeremiah Samuel Crow, December 3rd, 1892. Elias walked to it. He ran his gloved finger down the column. He did not pick the book up. "And the gentleman who came in with you." "Mr. Stone is in the necessary," Leona said evenly. "Out back. 2 cups of coffee on the road, Elias. A man reaches an age." Elias smiled thin. "Indeed." Upstairs, not a sound. "Miss Walker." Elias turned. "I have come on a different matter than the one this afternoon." "Have you?" "I have. I have come to offer you a settlement." Emily did not answer. "My cousin left behind a small estate. The bulk of it is tied up in land and cattle, but there is a cash portion, $800. It is yours if you will sign a document I have had drawn up that releases any further claim, any interest, any expectation against the Crow holdings. You may take the 800. You may take the next train east. You may forget that Silver Creek ever existed. I will personally see you to the depot in the morning." $800. A generous sum, Miss Walker, for a woman who arrived in this town with 17 cents. "How would you know what I arrived with, Mr. Crow?" The smile went a fraction tighter. "A small town. News runs. News runs to the man who pays for it to run. Miss Walker, Mr. Crow, $800 is less than 1 year of the rent your cousin's north pasture alone should pay. His estate, by my estimate, before I have even seen his inventory, is worth something close to 40,000. You are offering me 2%. It is what I am offering. It is what you are offering because you believe a woman who has been in this town for 1 day does not know the difference between a fair settlement and an insult. I know the difference, Mr. Crow. Then say a number." "I will not." "Miss Walker, because the answer is not a number. The answer is that you will not be offering settlements from the Crow estate in 6 months' time. Not from any estate. And I will not take $1 of money that has my almost husband's blood on it." The room went very still. Elias Crow's face did the smallest thing. Just a muscle at the hinge of his jaw. A man less watchful would have missed it. "You should be careful," he said softly, "about accusations, Miss Walker." "I have made no accusation, Mr. Crow. I have remarked that $800 is not a fair share of a $40,000 estate. If that remark sounded like an accusation to you, perhaps you should ask yourself why." Elias Crow took 1 step toward her. Leona lifted the fire iron an inch. Elias stopped. Boots on the stairs. Unhurried, Caleb Stone came down with his coat over his arm and a complete absence of a leather-bound book anywhere on his person. Elias. Stone. I was told you were out back. Now why would anyone say that? Elias's eyes flicked up the stairs behind Caleb. He looked at the coat over Caleb's arm. Slow. You have been upstairs. I have. Margaret keeps a small library up there. I asked if I might borrow a volume of poetry. She said I might. Poetry. Caleb drew a thin book from the pocket inside his coat. He held it up. It was a plain black volume stamped in faded gold, the poems of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. My late mother was fond of him, Caleb said. Margaret, I thank you. Caleb. Margaret said, you are welcome to it. Elias Crow looked at the book. He looked at the man holding it. He looked at Emily. He looked at Leona. He looked at his cousin, whose face had not moved since he had walked in the door. He was a clever man. He knew Emily saw that something was wrong in this room. He did not know what. He was weighing whether to tear the house apart to find it, and whether the cost of doing so in front of 3 witnesses on Christmas Eve was a cost he wished to pay before his drunk judge had signed him a real warrant. He decided. Miss Walker. He produced a folded paper from his coat. He set it on the table. The settlement document. I will leave it with you. You have until noon tomorrow to sign and bring it to the bank. After noon, the offer will be withdrawn, and I will consider with regret other means of resolving the matter of my cousin's estate. Mr. Crow, Miss Walker, take your paper with you. I beg your pardon. I will not sign it. I will not read it. I will not have it in a house where a woman is grieving her brother. Take it with you. Elias Crow stood very still. Then he picked the paper up. As you like, Miss Walker. As I like. He walked to the door. At the door he turned. Margaret. Elias. I trust you will be seeing Dr. Meacham tomorrow. For your nerves. I'm seeing no one tomorrow, Elias. It is Christmas. You should see him, cousin. You look pale. I would hate for you to follow your brother too soon. Margaret's chin lifted a full inch. Elias, get out of my house. He tipped his hat. He went. They heard the front door. They heard his boots on the porch. They heard his horse and the horses of the men who had waited for him at the gate. And they heard the whole small riding party move off down the cedar lane at a trot. Caleb Stone walked to the window. He watched until he could not see them anymore. He did not believe us. No, Emily said. He will come back. Yes. Tonight. Before morning. Margaret Crow sank onto a chair. He threatened me. He did. In my own house. He did. He threatened to kill me. Margaret. Leona knelt beside her and took both her hands. Listen to me. You are coming home with us. Tonight. Now. This minute. I do not care what you think you owe this house. This house is a pile of timber. You are a living woman. Get your coat. The papers. Caleb has the papers. My mother's Bible. Caleb will carry it out. Leona, if he sees us leave, he is not going to see us leave, because we are not going out the cedar lane. We are going out the kitchen door across your east pasture, through the gap in the hedge. Your husband cut in. 63, that nobody but me and you remember, and on to the Fletcher place. And Mrs. Fletcher is going to drive us into town in her wagon with the canvas pulled over the back, like we are 3 sacks of feed. Up, Margaret. Now. Margaret Crow got up. They went. It took Mrs. Fletcher, a small round widow with a voice like a man and the grip of a blacksmith, about 40 seconds to understand what Leona was asking of her, and about 4 more seconds to harness her wagon. You tell me, Mrs. Fletcher said, climbing onto the seat, when I can tell the rest of this valley what I know. Because I have been sitting on it for 2 years and my mouth is sore. Soon, Hannah, Leona said. Very soon. Elias Crow threw my Isaac off his own land in '89. My Isaac died 6 weeks later. I am driving this wagon tonight for my Isaac. We know Hannah. Get in the back, all of you. Pull the canvas. They pulled the canvas. The wagon rolled. Under the canvas in the dark, with the clerk's book in oilcloth pressed between Caleb's knees, and the 14 unsent letters pressed against Emily's ribs, Margaret Crowe began very quietly to cry. Not loud, not hard. The kind of crying a woman does when she has been saving it up for 3 weeks and the saving is finally done. Emily reached across in the dark and found her hand. Margaret. Yes. Your brother wrote me for 6 months. I know. I read every letter. I answered every one. He read your answers aloud to me at supper. He said your handwriting looked like a person who had something to say and did not waste ink saying it. A small sound from Emily that could have been a laugh and could have been the opposite. He was a good man, Margaret. He was the best man. He was the best man this valley ever grew, and his cousin killed him for a piece of paper. His cousin will answer for it. When? Before the new year. Emily. Margaret. If you say that and you mean it, then I will follow you into any courtroom in this country, and I will put my hand on any Bible, and I will tell a jury what I know. I have been waiting 3 weeks for someone to ask me to do it. I will die doing it if that is what it comes to. It will not come to that. It might. It might. But you will not be alone on that stand, Margaret. Not for a minute of it. The wagon rolled. At Leona's kitchen door, Mrs. Fletcher handed down each of them in turn, with the quiet efficiency of a woman who had driven more coffins than most undertakers. And when Margaret stepped down last, Mrs. Fletcher took her face in both gloved hands and held it. Margaret Crowe. Hannah. Your brother was worth 10 of his cousin. I know, Hannah. You are worth 20. Margaret's mouth trembled. Inside, Leona said. All of you. Hannah, God bless you. God bless us all, Mrs. Fletcher said, and turned her wagon and went. Inside, Leona bolted the door. The lamp in the parlor stays unlit tonight, Caleb said. Any man watching the street needs to think this house has 3 women in it who went to bed at 9. Agreed. Kitchen only. Curtains drawn. Back window shuttered. Agreed. They moved to the kitchen. Leona put the kettle on. Caleb set the oilcloth bundle on the table and unwrapped it. The clerk's book was leather-bound plain, about the size of a family Bible, but thicker. The spine was worn soft. On the first page, in a man's neat, careful hand, was written, Property of Jacob Dorset, Clerk of the County Silver Creek Territory. First entry, March 12, 1874. Emily turned the pages. The book was not the county record. It was a mirror of it. Every deed, every transfer, every sale, every filing copied by hand on the same day. It was filed with the clerk's own initial and the exact hour. Emily flipped forward to October of 1886. Her finger ran the column. Caleb. Ma'am? The parcel you bought from Thomas Hale? Yes. It is entered here. October 14th, 1887. $1,100. Hale to Stone. Clerk's initials, J.D. Time 11 a.m. Yes. And there is no second filing. Not on the 14th. Not on the 20th. Not at all. Meaning the deed Elias Crowe's company holds does not exist in the independent clerk's book. It is a forgery, and now I can prove it. How many other parcels? Emily turned the pages. She turned them fast but not careless. Her finger ran columns the way another woman's finger might run a hymnal. She was looking for a pattern, and she found it, and she found it, and she found it. 23, she said. Margaret put her hand to her mouth. 23 parcels, Caleb. 23 families. Every one of them filed and stamped in the county office under dates that do not appear in this book. Every one of them backdated. Every one of them tied to either the Silver Creek Land and Cattle Company or to one of 3 other shells. I am going to bet $1 right now are also Elias Crowe. Miss Walker. Margaret. My husband knew. Yes. He knew for 11 years. He wrote it down, Margaret, every day. That is what this book is. That is why he kept it. That is why you hid it. Your husband was a good man too. My husband died of pneumonia. Your husband was the first. Margaret closed her eyes. A single tear went down her cheek, and she did not wipe it away. So what do we do? Emily closed the book. We take it to a federal marshal. The nearest federal marshal, Caleb said, is in Cheyenne, 2 days' ride, 3 in this weather. Then we send for him. By what? By telegraph. Miss Walker. Caleb's voice went quiet. The telegraph in this town is operated by a 22-year-old boy who takes his orders from Elias Crow's postmaster office. Any telegram we send to Cheyenne tonight will be in Elias's hands before it is in the marshal's. Silence. Then we ride, Emily said, in this weather, with the pass closing by midnight. Then we ride before midnight. Emily. Caleb. I will not let you ride to Cheyenne in a December storm with every man Elias Crow can hire hunting this valley for you. Then come with me. I mean to. Then we ride. Emily. Caleb. If we wait for spring, we wait for 23 more funerals and a judge who has been bought a second time to rule against a clerk's book nobody will find. We ride tonight, or we do not ride at all. A long silence. Then Leona said, There is a third way. They looked at her. The eastbound stage leaves Silver Creek at 4 in the morning. It runs to Laramie. From Laramie there is a spur line that will put a man in Cheyenne by Friday noon. Leona. The stage driver is Jim Brennan. Jim Brennan's daughter is buried in the Silver Creek churchyard next to my Martha. His daughter was 15. She died of a fever that Dr. Pritchard told Jim on his deathbed Elias Crow had told him not to treat. Leona. Jim Brennan will carry 2 passengers to Laramie, and he will not log them on his manifest, and he will not stop for any man at any way station between here and there. He will carry the book. He will carry the letters. He will carry either Caleb or Miss Walker. He will not carry both because a stage with a man and a woman traveling alone in a territory this size will be remembered, and any man who can telegraph ahead can stop that stage. 1 passenger. The rest of us stay here and hold this town until the marshal comes. Caleb Stone looked at Emily. Emily looked at Caleb Stone. You go, she said. No. Caleb, I am a woman traveling alone in a stagecoach in a territory where a woman traveling alone is watched by every man at every way station. You are not. You are a Pinkerton man who can ride into a federal marshal's office in Cheyenne and be believed in 5 minutes. I am a bookkeeper who has been in this territory 1 day. Emily, if I leave this town, Elias Crow will burn Mrs. Dorset's house to the ground before the sun is up. No, he will not. He will. Caleb, he will not. Because I'm going to walk into the telegraph office at first light, and I'm going to send a telegram, and the telegram is going to say exactly what I want Elias Crow to read off that boy's desk. Saying that I have accepted his offer, that I will meet him at the bank at noon, that I am prepared to sign his settlement document and board the afternoon train east. Caleb stared at her. Emily. He will believe it. Because he wants to believe it. And he will not burn a house on Christmas morning if he believes at noon he is winning. We buy ourselves half a day. Half a day is all you need to clear the pass. And at noon I walk into that bank with Leona and Margaret and Mrs. Fletcher and every widow in this valley whose husband Elias Crow put in the ground. And I do not sign his paper. I read it aloud on the steps of the bank to every soul in Silver Creek. And I tell them what is in this book. And I hold them there until the marshal rides in. Caleb Stone did not speak for a long moment. Then he said very quiet, You are a dangerous woman, Emily Walker. Mr. Stone, I have been telling you that since yesterday. Caleb Stone rode out at 3:40 in the morning with the clerk's book wrapped in oilcloth against his ribs and the 14 letters buttoned inside his shirt. Jim Brennan met him at the mouth of the alley behind the livery. There was no lamp. There was no word. Brennan simply nodded, swung the coach door, and Caleb climbed up beside him on the box, because no man was going to let this coach be driven alone tonight. Emily stood at the corner of the livery and watched until the stage went past the last lamp on the edge of town, and the dark took it. She did not wave. She walked back to Leona's by the alley and did not meet a single soul. At sunrise, she walked alone and in her gray coat to the telegraph office. The boy was already at his key. He stood up fast when she came in. Miss Walker, ma'am? I need to send a telegram. Yes, ma'am. Write it clean. I will pay. Yes, ma'am. She dictated. To Mr. Elias Crow, First Bank of Silver Creek. I accept the terms of your offer. I will meet you at the bank at noon today to sign the document and board the afternoon train east. Miss Emily Walker. The boy wrote it. His hand shook. He looked up. Ma'am, this goes through the postmaster. I know it does, son. Ma'am. Send it. He sent it. Emily laid down the 3 pennies for the wire. She looked at him a long, steady moment. What is your name? Wesley, ma'am. Wesley. How long since your mother has eaten a proper Christmas dinner? His throat worked. My mother died last spring, ma'am. I'm sorry to hear it. Ma'am. Wesley. At noon today, there is going to be a great deal of trouble on the steps of that bank across the street. I am going to ask you to do one thing for me. I am going to ask you to stay in this office with your door locked and your window shuttered until the trouble is over. Do you understand me? Ma'am. And when it is over, Wesley, I am going to come back in here, and I am going to hire you at twice what the postmaster pays to operate the telegraph in this town under a license that will be held by the territory and not by any man in Silver Creek. Do you understand me? The boy's eyes filled. Yes, ma'am. Shutter your window. She walked out. At 10 o'clock, Leona Dorset walked the length of Main Street in a black wool coat and stopped at every porch between the church and the bank. She did not knock. She did not go in. She stood on each porch and she said quiet and plain 9 words. 11:30. Bank steps. Bring your dead with you. Then she walked on. By 11:15, women were coming out of doorways in that town that had not opened their doors in winter in years. Mrs. Fletcher in her husband's coat. Old Mrs. Hanley, whose son had fallen off a horse he had ridden his whole life. The 3 Carver sisters, whose father had died of pneumonia. The seamstress, who had refused to open her latch for Emily 2 days earlier carrying a wedding ring in her apron that her husband had been buried without. They came on foot, and they came by wagon, and they came alone, and they came in pairs. By 11:45, there were 41 women on the boardwalk outside the First Bank of Silver Creek. By 11:58, there were 60. The men of the town stood across the street, and they did not say a word. At noon, Elias Crow opened the door of the bank and stepped out onto the top step in a gray overcoat and a black silk hat. He saw them. He saw for 1/2 of 1 second what he was looking at. Then he recovered. Miss Walker. The smile was in place. The voice was smooth. I see you have brought company. Mr. Crow? Shall we step inside? This is a business matter. It is not a business matter, Mr. Crow. It is a public matter, and I will conduct it in public. Miss Walker, I would advise... Mr. Crow, I have your document here. You sent it by messenger at 10 this morning. Shall I read it aloud? Silence. Shall I? Miss Walker, for the record, Emily said, and she lifted the document, and her voice carried the length of the boardwalk, and across the street, and up to the men who were not speaking. This paper offers me the sum of $800 in exchange for my signature releasing all claim against the estate of the late Jeremiah Crow. The estate of the late Jeremiah Crow, by the records filed in the county courthouse of this town, is valued at $37,412. I have been offered 2.25%. A sound went through the women on the boardwalk. I will not sign this paper. Elias Crow took 1 step down. I will not sign it because the estate of the late Jeremiah Crow is not the estate of a man who died of pneumonia. I will not sign it because the man offering me this paper is the same man who for 7 years has been filing forged deeds in the office of his own cousin, the county recorder. I will not sign it because 23 families on this street and in this valley are sitting on land they do not legally own. And I will not sign it because a leather-bound clerk's book kept by the late Jacob Dorset from 1874 through 1885 is at this moment on an eastbound stagecoach in the company of a former Pinkerton agent bound for the desk of the United States Marshal in Cheyenne, who will be in this town by Monday. She did not shout. She did not have to. Miss Walker. Elias Crow's voice had changed. You have made a very grave mistake. I have made, Emily said, the first correct entry in a ledger that has been wrong for 7 years. Miss Walker, I would like you to consider very carefully where you are standing, and who is beside you, and who is not. Emily looked at him. Who is not beside me, Mr. Crow? Mr. Stone, I note, is absent. Mr. Stone is on the Laramie Road. Mr. Stone is a fugitive from a warrant I signed this morning for the theft of a clerk's book out of my cousin's house. A ripple through the women. Is that so? It is. Mr. Crow. Emily reached into her coat. She drew out a folded paper. This is a deposition taken at 6 this morning, signed and witnessed by Margaret Crow, your cousin's sister. In her own hand, sworn before a notary whose license I have verified is held by the territory and not by you. In this deposition, Margaret Crow states under oath that she, not Mr. Stone, removed the clerk's book from her husband's office and did so voluntarily of her own free will as the sole legal heir of Jacob Dorset's personal effects with full authority to do so. There is no theft, Mr. Crow. There is a woman cleaning out her own husband's desk and given a book to a federal officer. There is no warrant on earth that can touch Mr. Stone for that. Miss Walker. Mr. Crow. You do not understand what you have started. I understand exactly what I have started. You are one woman. Mr. Crow. Emily turned slow and looked down the boardwalk, at the 61 faces looking back at her, at Leona Dorset at her right shoulder, at Margaret Crow at her left, at Mrs. Fletcher in her husband's coat, at the 3 Carver sisters, at Wesley the telegraph boy who had opened his shuttered door 3 minutes ago and was standing in the frame of it, at the men across the street who had begun one by one to cross it. Mr. Crow, I am not one woman. Elias Crow's hand moved for his coat. Mr. Crow, Emily said very soft. Before your hand comes out of that coat, I would like you to look to your left. He looked. On the roof of the Mercantile in the cold noon light stood Sam. The ranch hand, 14 years old, with the stock of a Winchester rifle set firm against his shoulder, and the barrel of it pointed at the top button of Elias Crow's gray overcoat. Mr. Stone gave this boy instructions before he left, Emily said. I did not ask what they were. I am told the boy is a very fine shot. Elias Crow's hand came out of his coat empty. And to your right, Mr. Crow. He looked right. 2 men were riding up Main Street at a hard trot. They wore long dark coats and hats pulled down. The lead rider reined in at the foot of the bank steps. He did not dismount. He looked up at Elias Crow from the saddle. Mr. Crow, he said. Marshal, Cheyenne got a telegram at 5:40 this morning from a Pinkerton operative named Caleb Stone over a wire we keep independent of this territory's office. He said to tell you when I saw you that the pass was open at midnight and the Laramie stage was on time, and that he has been wanting to say these next words to you for 3 years and 3 months. The marshal drew a folded paper of his own and unfolded it without hurry. Elias Jeremiah Crow, you are under arrest by the authority of the United States Marshal Service for the territorial districts of Wyoming and the adjoining territories on charges of land fraud, forgery of federal documents, bribery of a territorial judge, and pending the exhumation of the body of Jeremiah Samuel Crow, which will be ordered tomorrow morning by a federal bench in Cheyenne, the murder of same. The bank steps did not breathe. Hands behind your back, Mr. Crow. Elias Crow looked at the marshal. He looked at Emily. He looked last at Margaret, his cousin standing quiet at Emily's left shoulder in a morning coat that had not been off her back in 3 weeks. Margaret, Elias, you would turn on your own family. My family. Elias, Margaret said, and her voice did not shake, is buried. You put it there. I would turn on you if I had to walk through fire to do it. And I will not spend one more Christmas in a house where the man who killed my brother is coming and going at his pleasure. The marshal's deputy dismounted. He walked up the bank steps. He took Elias Crow's wrists, and he put the irons on them, and he walked him down the steps past 61 women who did not move out of his way and did not look away from his face. At the wagon, Elias Crow stopped. Miss Walker. Mr. Crow, this is not over. Mr. Crow, Emily said. It was over the minute you held back my telegram. Every day since has only been the accountant. They put him in the wagon. They drove him out of town. The three Carver sisters began very quiet to weep. Mrs. Fletcher did not weep. Mrs. Fletcher stood with her hand on Margaret Crow's shoulder and did not take it off for a long time. Leona Dorset turned to Emily. Child. Leona. You did it. We did it. You did it. Emily's hand, the one that had held the document steady through all of it, finally began to shake. Leona took it and folded it in both of her own and held it and did not let go. In the afternoon, a long telegram came in over Wesley's Key from Laramie. Caleb Stone had reached the marshal's office at 5 in the morning. The federal bench in Cheyenne had signed the warrants at 7. A second detail of marshals had been dispatched to Silver Creek by the 10 o'clock stage. Caleb Stone was on that stage. He would be in Silver Creek by morning. Emily read the telegram twice. She folded it. She put it in the pocket over her heart. Wesley looked at her from his key. Ma'am? Yes, Wesley. I wired the job offer you made me this morning to the territorial office. They sent back and said yes. Good, Wesley. Ma'am? Yes. Merry Christmas, ma'am. Emily Walker put her hand to her eyes for one moment, just one, and then she lowered it. Merry Christmas, Wesley. Caleb Stone came off the Laramie stage at 9 the next morning. Half the town was on the boardwalk to meet him. He did not look at the crowd. He looked the whole length of Main Street at one woman standing alone in front of Leona Dorset's green-shuttered house. He walked to her. He did not hurry. He stopped 3 feet from her, and he took off his hat, and he held it in both hands in front of him. Ma'am? Mr. Stone. The book is in the federal safe in Cheyenne. The letters are with it. The federal marshal will be in this town Monday to begin the exhumations. I have been authorized, pending confirmation of the charges, to serve as deputy marshal for Silver Creek through the conclusion of the proceedings. That is good news, Mr. Stone. Ma'am? Yes. It ain't the reason I came back on the morning stage instead of the night one. No. No, ma'am. A long breath. Emily? Caleb. I have ridden a great many roads in my life. I have served a great many warrants. I have sat across a great many tables from a great many people, and I have always walked away from every last one of them when the work was done. I know Caleb. I am not walking away from this one. She looked at him. The scar, the slate eyes, the hands holding the hat steady in front of him like a man holding a thing he had finally earned the right to hold. Mr. Stone? Ma'am, I am not asking you to. His jaw moved, just once. Ma'am, I have a ranch that needs a bookkeeper. I know. I have a house with 6 empty rooms in it, and a porch that faces east, and a stand of cottonwoods that my mother planted in 71. I know that too. I have not asked a woman a question of this kind in my entire life, Emily Walker. I do not know the correct way to ask it. I know only that if I do not ask it on this boardwalk on this morning in front of this town, I will not have earned the asking. Then ask, he asked. She said yes before he was finished asking. She said it the way she had said every important thing she had said in her life. Plain, quiet, without ornament. The way a bookkeeper closes a ledger at the end of a true year. Leona Dorset on her porch set down the coffee cup she had been holding, put her apron to her face, and wept for the first time in a decade. Margaret Crow beside her did not weep. Margaret Crow smiled, a small, slow, unlost smile, the first one since the 4th of December, and it stayed on her face the rest of the morning. They were married on the first day of spring by the Reverend Hale in the same church where Jeremiah Crow had laughed on the last Sunday of November. Emily Walker wore a plain blue dress. Caleb Stone wore his dead father's coat. Margaret Crow stood at Emily's shoulder as her witness. Leona Dorset gave the bride away. Elias Crow was convicted on 17 counts in a federal court in Cheyenne in May. He was sentenced to 40 years. He served the first 7 and died of a fever in a prison hospital in Laramie in the spring of '99, and no one in Silver Creek put a stone on his grave. And Margaret Crow, asked by a reporter from Denver if she had a comment, said only that her brother's stone was a very fine one, and that was the only stone in that family that mattered to her. The 23 families got their land back. The deeds were refiled clean. Wesley, the telegraph boy, kept the key of the Silver Creek office for 31 years and raised 4 children on the income and named his oldest daughter Emily. Mrs. Fletcher drove her wagon until the winter of '04, when her heart gave out in her own kitchen on a Sunday morning. She was buried next to her Isaac. Leona Dorset lived to be 81. Her green-shuttered house stayed in her name until the day she died, and then it passed by the terms of a will she had written in her own hand 6 months after Christmas Eve of '92 to Margaret Crow, who lived in it the rest of her days. Caleb and Emily Stone raised 3 children on the Lazy S, a son they named Jacob for Leona's husband, a daughter they named Hannah for Mrs. Fletcher, and a second daughter they named Margaret for the woman who had drawn the bolt on her own front door on Christmas Eve and walked out of a house of the dead to stand in a house of the living. On the wall of the Lazy S kitchen, until the day the house burned in a grass fire in 1931, hung a framed scrap of paper, the corner torn from a telegram, on which was written in a young bookkeeper's neat, careful hand the 17 cents she had carried into Silver Creek on the evening of December 24th, 1892. Below it, in Caleb Stone's hand, was a single line, the price of a woman who would not be bought. Emily Stone died in her own bed in the house her husband had built on the morning of the 4th of July, 1921. She was 68 years old. Her last words spoken to her eldest daughter were 3. It was enough. And it was.